you have a role, so you will see. So hello everyone. Today we will explore the topic of mentoring and its various forms. You will hear about technical and soft skills mentoring, about formal, informal mentoring. But what connects all of those approaches is that it's a learning experience, learning relationship between mentee and a mentor, where they share knowledge, skills, expertise through development conversations, experience sharing, and role mentoring. So that's the definition from European Mentoring and Coaching Council. But we want to focus today on practice, so in practice in its various forms. So today we have 5 guests talking about different experiences from a perspective of a mentor or a mentee. And I want to introduce all of them. You may know them because they also give speeches during the conference, so you may know a bit of context of their work. So first one is Jonatas Paganini, developer advocate at Timescale. Then Maciej Gorywoda, product marketing manager at JetBrains, also Scala Dev in free time. Then Monica McGuigan, junior Scala developer at JP Morgan. Then Nicola Rinaldo, a senior developer at JP Morgan, and Sophie Collard, Scala and Elm developer software engineer. So also all of you have different experiences, and what's interesting, and probably you will find more about that, is that Nicola was a mentor of Monica and Sophie. So so let's start with something, a big topic that I've heard a lot of you talking about it here during the conference, outside the conference rooms. I mean, the challenges of job market in IT and how the mentoring can help to address that in a context of how the mentoring as a way of learning and professional development can help developers and other IT professionals to grow, develop, and also make sure that they can still do their job, right? So a very general question at the beginning. And maybe one more note that there will be time for your questions and comments at the end of the panel. So if you have any comments in your mind during our conversation, so please, you will have a chance to share them at the end of the discussion. Okay, so let's start with the challenges and the mentoring as a way to tackle that, address that.
Hi. The IT jobs market is in a very weird place right now. After the pandemics, the remote work started to be more normalized, and that's kind of good for many of us because we can work from many places in the world. We have easier access to good jobs if we want to change them. We can make our own rules about when and how we work. But that applies mostly to seniors, and this is something that that also the companies know, and companies look for seniors because they trust us that we can plan our work, we are more responsible, we know what to do, we know how to ask and what to ask. And then add to it the fact that in the recent few years we had big layoffs from big companies, meaning that many senior developers look for jobs. And the fact that they can work remotely means that any company in the world can also look for them. And that means that juniors have suddenly very little strength to go into the market. In many companies I know of, we only look for senior developers.
Okay, so what about mentoring? How we can use that, the support from others to grow, develop, and...
So first of all, I would say that we shouldn't sell illusion that it's enough to have a few months of mentoring, a few months of some courses, and then suddenly everyone will want you and you will have a good job. there might be a way to, there are still companies that look for junior developers, like we talked before in game development, there's some kind of a niche where many young people come in, but in the same time, these companies usually provide worse working conditions. So it might be like a strategy for a young person to go there, survive a few years, and then go to a better place with already something in the CV. But it's not for everyone. And for others, I would rather say that, yeah, if you can try to learn more, try to find a good job, like sending many CVs, and even if it's something small, even if it's something that doesn't pay well, it will give you a good start for later.
Okay, so you mentioned juniors, so maybe we can move to Monica, because you mentioned during your yesterday's speech a lot about how you as a young professional can get from others, like from seniors, but there are also some challenges, and it's not like you know from the beginning how to do it. So can you please tell me how the mentoring you get, the formal and informal, helped you to start your job in IT? And also, I guess maybe then you can follow as a mentor, because this is like two-way learning experience, so it's not like only Monica gain a lot from this relationship, but also you as a mentor, I guess.
Sure. So I think the main thing that on a more like softer side was the benefit I got from the mentoring relationship was improving how I communicate and understanding how do I better ask for help, and how do I kind of learn in a more coherent way and be able to ask questions better. And then on a more technical side, I was more exposed to different, I guess, like FP concepts, and kind of encouraged to go off and actually study that outside of work and be encouraged to kind of like work on side projects. So I think that's the main benefits I got from that mentoring relationship. And I think it's helped me to kind of see what I am actually interested in and kind of where I want to take my career, but also just in general kind of making me a more well-rounded developer.
Okay.
Another advantage for you, of course, is you're here. I mean, I did encourage you to get there, and that's worked out, hasn't it? So the question is, as a mentor, what do I get out of relationship with mentees? Well, first, it's I guess pride is the right word, of seeing somebody you've been training do really well and get much better. It feels amazing when you see somebody who has potential and you sort of aim them in the right direction and then see them flower by themselves. It's absolutely amazing. So just the pride of that is really pleasant. And of course, you pick your mentees, right? You pick the people you want to train. So you pick people who are interesting and intelligent, and you get a lot from these conversations. You learn a lot. And also, when you have to explain things to people, that is also the best way to actually understand these things, isn't it? Because there's a lot of things I do. I understand how I do them. I don't necessarily remember why I learned to do them that way. I can't really explain them very well because it's become automatic. And having to explain to somebody who doesn't have yet that experience, but who does have the talent to learn it, forces me to come up with better answer, understand better the subject in which I thought I was an expert, and actually I was just repeating something I'd learned years ago. So it's a great way for you to become a better rounded developer, a better rounded engineer in general, really. So that's really what I get from it.
Yeah, I would like to continue this topic of communication, because also we had those conversations before the panel that they also mentioned that it's not super easy to ask for help, but also sometimes people are not ready to ask questions. They don't know how to do that. So you meant, like, I know that you prepared like kind of a body guide also for your mentees, because you introduced like many people in your company, onboarded them. So can you please elaborate more about how to support those, like both sides, like mentees and mentors, so they can get the most out of the relationship?
Well, the first thing that I value is have a frank conversation with the person and understand how the person works. So some people, they are visual, some people, they prefer to learn, some people, they prefer to chat and work together. So if you start with this relationship as a, let's say, agreement of how is it going to be, then the person will know exactly how to play their role, and then the mentor also can play the role depending on the need of the mentee. The problem is that when both are not prepared for it, they don't know exactly what are the limits of this connection and the limits of what they can ask and so on. So sometimes you need to exemplify these type of things. Sometimes you need to also show some guidance. So in my case, I was onboarding backend developers, and then at some point I introduced like other backend mentors and other front-end mentors. So I was trying to create a program, and then I was like just trying to check like how is it going? How can I just reach out and know if their connection is working or not? So, and then I was like, oh, this is like 10 minutes per day, sometimes 10 minutes per week. And then it's so different when people, they bound some real connection than just to go for some, let's say, support mode. So if the person is like question and answer, it's different than like, hey, I know you are more experienced and I can learn from your mindset. So generally I feel the greatest opportunities is learn how people think with mentoring, and just learn how they also find the way to grow in their career. So one thing that I like to expose is it's very hard to, from the mentor perspective, to impose some structure for the entire, like, let's say, mentee group or someone, because sometimes you are introducing something and then like the person is not prepared for it, or the person is not on that level. So for example, I am a big fan of pair programming. I was just expecting that everybody loves pair programming as I am, and then I discovered that it's not a real thing. Like people just like to code themselves and then they can just learn it and then they come back and say, well, now I learned it, then we can continue our conversation. So it's very hard to just try to rule them out in one single way. So I'm always going more towards like guidelines and inspirational people that we're mentoring. And yeah, that's it for me. I don't know if anyone would like to comment.
If you want to comment on the communication topic, I think it's the biggest one when you build a relationship, because if you don't share feedback, so that's also, it's not helping. Do you want to add something?
I mean, it's really more of a question, because you talked a lot about communication, you talked about remote work, and there's a question, mentoring, does it work better remote or on premises? And does anybody have any particular experience on that subject?
Online versus offline, pros and cons.
So I think it's a lot easier to have a very like defined mentoring relationship when you're doing it online, if you have kind of like weekly scheduled meetings or monthly meetings. But I think there's also a huge amount of benefit from in-person, kind of being able to have like a conversation and being able to go up to somebody and ask questions very easily to your mentor. So I think there's benefits to both, and it just depends on what you want to actually get out of the relationship. So.
Yeah. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when we learn, we have that set of things that we know that we don't know and we want to learn, but there's also a much bigger set of things that we don't know that we don't know. And offline, especially when doing pair programming, and when we have a mentor that sits with us, that person can observe what we're doing and can hint at something that we don't know that we don't know. When we do it remotely, then maybe if we share the screen and we really have like this full commitment for like a 1 hour, 2 hour chat with someone, then we can do it. But this is very rare, and instead we just ask questions and expect answers, and we are then like very only in that part that we know that we don't know and we want to learn, but we may miss a lot this way.
I mean, as a counterpoint, I'm working fully remote, so any interactions I have with developers in my team and people I mentor is going to be remote or asynchronous, and I find that PR or MR reviews are a good way of doing that. You're not pairing, sure, so you're not observing all the mistakes they do as they make them, but you get to see the output, something that they think, right, I've done the best I could, this is what I think is my best possible output now that I have had time to polish the edges off. What do you think? And then you can see, right, so you can see all the mistakes and take the time to think about your answer. Why is that incorrect? Rather than go, no, don't do that. This is not how we do it. That's not a super useful command. However, we don't do that because this problem might happen, and then you can type out some code that says, if you do that, this will happen. Something you can do if you have the time to play with it a little bit. And often, I find myself starting to type a comment, then trying to justify it and realizing, no, actually, I'm wrong. That's actually okay. Oh, thank you. So the asynchronous thing works for me because it gives me the occasion to think about my answers a lot more than, well, I'm the senior, I know more than you do, so I'm going to give you my knowledge, and you're going to have to respect it because I'm older than you are. And usually that doesn't work that well. So I agree with you, but there's also asynchronous works quite well for me as well.
So if I can rephrase it if I understand it well, because what you described looks like very much more slow than what just like talking to each other, but you can augment it with just giving more precise and more information at each step of the exchange.
True up to a point. It also prevents me from giving useless information or answers that I realize when I think about them, I shouldn't say that it's confusing, not useful or wrong. So there's that aspect as well.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe I will continue, Sophie, with you, because you have also an experience in mob programming, so you're also working on like in the similar area, let's say. So what is your experience for working with others and just learn at the same time? And I think it's also very much like two-way of learning.
Yeah, exactly. So like the format that I choose to do some mentoring at JP Morgan was to run some mob programming sessions. And we'd look through some very high level problems. So we'd look through how you build an endpoint in a particular language, or how you talk to a database and stuff like that. And it really allows two things. The first thing is it breaks that, that kind of dynamic where the more junior person is the mentee, and they ask the questions and listen to what you have to say. It helps break that relationship. We've touched already on the point that you understand the topic much better when you actually explain it to someone else. And it's very easy to create that environment in a mob programming session where the juniors are not just the ones just asking questions and passively listening, they're also helping one another. So typically the session goes that way. I get them started on a problem, and then I just hand the keyboard to somebody, and I just leave everyone else figure out the solution to that. And you see even fairly junior people jumping in and suggesting, oh, actually, maybe we should do this way. Like, it really kind of helps create that environment. It's very helpful for that. And the other one is the other point with mob programming session is you can experiment with different styles of learning. So one style of learning I really like is, typically when you learn a new subject, you'd learn the very basic building blocks, and it takes you a while before you start to work on an interesting project. And a few years ago, when I was studying machine learning, I actually found a project, I think it's called Fast AI, where they decided actually we're going to flip this around. So instead of telling you before you can build a neural net, you need to learn linear algebra, calculus, and then linear regression, and so on, we're going to first give you a neural net that does something interesting, and then slowly we're going to poke at different parts of it and break it down. And I found that super effective, and it works really well with mob programming as well. And it just gives your mentees a different perspective, maybe something more interesting, because you can give them a fully working project instead of small building blocks to play around with.
So I've attended a few of your mob programming sessions, and another thing you do is you live code them entirely, and you will make mistakes. You will get stuck every once in a while, and I think Monica would confirm that seeing a senior person make mistakes, struggle, feels really great. First, you hate these people, so you want them to fail, but also it's like, oh, we don't have to be perfect. They're not perfect, so nobody's expected to be perfect. Even the good ones make mistakes, and every once in a while you'd have a junior help you figure out something that you were stuck with, and maybe you should put a semicolon here because we're doing Java, and that actually solved the problem, and it makes people feel great to realize I'm actually useful. I can actually help people who are much more experimented than I am. So that was an aspect of your mob session that was amazing as well. It was, because she's not doing them any longer because she left the company, right? They're still amazing, it's just not with us any longer.
Yeah, I will comment on that as well, because I got from one of my mentors I supported in their role that also working on a common project helps her to understand the way the mentee is thinking about the process. It was like on design, so something like a bit different, but it was like she said, okay, so I'm working on it on the real project with her. So right now, so I know how she thinks right now, not like a month ago or 2 months ago or half of a year ago when she was working on her like project to portfolio. So I think it's also really important. Not easy, probably, as I said. Sometimes you need to face the thing that okay, I'm making mistakes. I need to also talk about it with my younger colleagues, so that's not easy. But also what we touched here is style of learning, and I think people have different styles of learning, and some people like more structured approach, some like less formal, informal. And I know that you have an experience with all of those styles, so if you can also share some insight about how you can find a way between structure and flexibility, because for me mentoring is about like some structured approach. Maybe you have different ideas on that. So I also would like to talk about it, because some people I guess don't want to do that because they don't like this very structured programs. But at the same time, there are people who really need that. But different kind of learnings, how you find the best way to work with your mentee or a mentor, how you communicate that. Big question, I know.
I was very wild on like not structuring anything, and then I remember, because I am very excited guy. I'm always excited. I'm always like jumping excitement and going over everything. And then one day after my session, a guy say, "Man, your session was so amazing, but I can't remember a single word. I see too many things. I see too many things, and I don't know what exactly I was supposed to learn." And then I was like, okay, so maybe I should start putting some intro, some expectations, and what I really want to go with this, because maybe it's too abstract in the like, for example, most of my case, I was like showing frameworks and walking through like complex pieces of code, and then sometimes for me, like, oh, I'm doing it with my 2 hands behind tied already, and that's fine to go and learn and just show this, but people were not really understanding. So it really needs to be an agreement. Sometimes, for example, if you already have your topic, let's say, ready for you, and then you just follow the presentation, sometimes it also doesn't match and people don't learn because it's too structured and too boring. What I was also trying a lot was when I have more than one people, like in the mentorship thing, was let's put them in touch and let's let them teach each other what they are learning. And that was really cool. I can say I run around like 300 sharing sessions in the company. So I had like all types of features and subjects exposed by all types of people. So if you wanted to learn feature X, explain it by engineering manager or explain it by a developer. So I was just like putting everybody in the circle and trying to let them all talk. And then I saw that it was much more effective because they were excited, they use simple words and they go, and then when they have questions, then they just answer the questions. So it was very good to learn that, like, well, sometimes it's also not about structuring, but also introducing and making more interactive learning process, which everybody can share.
So it's not like boring versus exciting, but you can find your own way. Somewhere in the middle. Do you want to comment on that or continue? What are your experiences?
I mean, in my case, I have a group of people that I help, and it's always one-to-ones, and it's always highly dependent on the person that I'm helping. So, for example, with Monica, it's a lot more random. There's not much structure to it. I'll review her PRs, look at what she's struggling with, and try to help, and sometimes get told off because she's not at all interested in learning that. But it's quite interesting. But also I have a few other people with whom they really need the structure. So we have a meeting on a weekly basis, and then there's an agenda for that meeting, the question that they have, the problem they would like to learn how to solve, or my thoughts on something. And then we talk about it for half an hour. And that's very structured, and I get a chance to prepare and have actual interesting answers to give to the question that they have. So it really depends on the person, I find. And one of the things that's been challenging has been to learn how to do both or either, or to change halfway through, depending on what the mentee needed. because it's really not about what I'd like to do, which is pontificate for half an hour. It's really about what the mentee needs or wants. And so, yeah, it really depends on the person and the phase of the moon, right? What the person needs at the time, or the mood, or whatever. So yeah, it's just, you just have to learn to adapt quickly, which is very fun in itself.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about setting goals, because if you are having a very structured way of doing your mentoring, I think, maybe I'm not right, it's easier to check the progress, to verify if you are going closer to your goals or not. So how do you deal with it in this more informal way of doing a mentoring? Like, yeah.
In a more formal way or in a more informal way?
Informal way.
I don't.
You know.
If it's informal, it's just on a day-to-day basis. What's the current problem? What are you struggling with? What can we talk about? What is it that we can talk about? And so that's more random. There's no checks. There's no goalpost to aim for. We did that initially. We were a bit more formal when I was trying to get you to apply to Scala Days, and so we had regular checkpoints where, how many slides have you written? What is your storytelling? These kind of things. So this was a lot more formal. But now it's completely like, you just come and say, this thing, I don't understand that. Lenses, optics, what are they? And then we talk about that. So it's a lot more random, I guess, ad hoc, fun.
Okay. And about the formal one, how do you deal with it? How do you set goals? How do you measure them?
I mean, if anybody wants to, I can answer that as well, but I don't want to, yeah.
Yeah, I think if we do mentoring like one-to-one, then that informal way is more natural and quicker, better. The formal way is more about teaching groups of people or one person, but who hasn't that much time to talk to us all the time. So for that we have, like in JetBrains, I work on a functional programming course, interactive, that everyone can do examples on in IntelliJ IDEA, and it's connected with videos, with infographics, and like everything is described, like from very simple things from true examples to more complicated and more complicated. And that works also for me as a person who planned all that, because this way I also learn to think in a more structured way that I can use for informal, like one-to-one mentoring. But anyway, if I talk to one person, then this is something that just somewhere in the back in my head, but I will focus on that person in a specific way.
Would you add anything about this? Goals. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking, like from my experience, it's one of the crucial thing of the relationship. But I have like running a more very structural mentoring program where we have like number of hours that you should do, and then like for months that you have to do that. So sometimes what happens is that people have the goal that is set at the beginning, have kind of a contract that they both signed, but they don't check it. So it started to go in some different directions, and in the middle of it or at the end, they're like, okay, but I want it to be somewhere else. Of course, I get something from this mentoring relationship, but it's something completely different. And they sometimes feel that they failed. So I wonder if you have this kind of experience that sometimes could be like difficult, that people at the end of the relationship have this feedback in their mind that something went wrong only because they were not following the progress, etc., etc. So I know it's about very, like, the question is about a very formal way of doing mentoring, but I wonder if you have any experiences with this topic, with evaluating goals, also maybe something changing them in the middle of the program, of the mentoring relationship.
I would like to share my last experience as a mentee. I am working in the marketing department, so I was needing to learn how to write properly as the marketing folks. And I was really pissed off because every piece of like one page was generating like 100 comments from the folks, and I was like, they will fire me very soon. So I need to fix that, and I need to find a way. And then I come to my mentor and say, man, I love that you put out the comments, you are very organized, we are in different time zones, but I need to learn to understand how you think. how you are judging my things and how you are thinking. So it doesn't matter the hour that you are going to review my stuff, but please call me. I would like to watch you, and if you can talk, think loud, and I can walk through this stuff with you, that will be very helpful. So I have like 3 or 4 async sessions of mentoring through this review process, and then I was like, stop telling me, just show and go. So this show and tell is a good mix of things that you can try, and not only tell people, but go and walk them through the stuff. And it was cool because in 2 sessions, I was able to reduce his review time from 1 hour to 5 minutes. And then everybody was happy because I was also feeling like I'm not going to accomplish, and now I feel I can move on. And I was able to also document part of how he thinks. So it was also a good thing, like, hey, I learned something, and I can also make like a guideline, and the next person will suffer a bit less. So, and then he was also going to mentor me on what I was writing about the writing. So we had like a very good loop of interactions and learnings. So it's become a very prolific way of solving. But I was needing to request him, and that was a thing that I just learned. Like, as a mentee, you can also request things like, hey, go and request, like, I need this from you. And then if the person cannot afford that thing, at least they can point out other people, and that will help. But sometimes we are a bit like, oh, I can't ask this type of thing because, oh, this person is so busy. And if they already agree in mentoring you, that is not a reality. They just put effort and time on they have time for you. So don't worry on this spectrum. Sometimes we, as mentee, we struggle to also think that we are not stealing time or losing people time. So it's also important, like, to just relax and think, no, this is another person. They already were in my place in the past. Yeah.
So what I get from your story is also that the question who is responsible for the relationship going forward, mentee or a mentor or someone in between. I'm curious about your experiences.
Well, I think this is a commitment from both sides. It's like when you want to open a company with a partner, or if you want to have a relationship, you need to know where are the limits, and especially, like, I was always trying to go in the direction, like, I am the mentor, and I need to find a way that you feel comfortable with me. So generally in the very first session, I go and I open something that's very about my vulnerabilities. So that was a thing that I always connect with people. Like now, I'm just sharing my struggles and the things that I are struggling in the past. So it really connects people, and then people feel, well, this is just another person like me, and then they feel more relaxed to talk.
Okay, Sophie.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about the importance of the mentee being able to be vulnerable and ask very open and honest questions to the mentor. So I've never done formal mentoring where we set goals. It's always been very informal. I went behind my management's back and just decided to set up those sessions. But I think that's one thing I would be careful about if you have a formal relationship, is that it doesn't turn into a management relationship. You don't want to feel at any point that your mentor is judging you and that you can't be completely open with them. You can't tell them, oh, I really don't understand this, or I'm really terrible at this other thing. Can you help me there? I think it's really important that you watch out for this if you set formal goals.
Okay, so how do you find a mentor for yourself? I mean, what would be the rule? Because I guess you can find someone who's really famous, like the biggest expert in the field, but it won't be the best match for you because you're looking for something else. So do you have any advices for like all of us if we're looking for a mentor, how to start?
I mean, personally, like the mentors that I found also, came to me. Like they're also people who are interested in mentoring, and it kind of fell into place naturally. I never actually, or whenever I tried to go to someone and ask to mentor me, usually it didn't work out. So it's kind of both ways.
So it's also encouragement to all of us here that it's okay to ask someone, like, can I mentor you?
Yeah, ask someone, but also, if you're an experienced developer, make sure other people know that you're open to mentoring them, like, offer this. Yeah.
I think it also comes down to what your goals are from that mentoring relationship. So I have kind of two, where one is more technical and the other is more kind of based on like soft skills, and picking that person based on what you think where their skill set lies and how you can benefit that relationship, and the kind of questions you actually want to ask them is really important. So you kind of need to figure out what I actually want first before you can decide who you actually want to go and ask. And I think you also kind of have to be able to have a like rapport and relationship with that person, and kind of have them understand your learning style and kind of where you're coming from in the first place. Otherwise, it's not going to work if you can't have that kind of like open and honest conversation.
Okay, any more advice? Okay, so I think now it's time for your questions or comments. We still have a few minutes. I asked Bartek to help us with microphones, so everything should be recorded on the mic. So, yeah.
Hey, I have a confession to make, and it's that I'm a bit confused. And bear with me for a moment. So the reason why I'm confused is because some of the things that you guys talked about, I would maybe classify as training. Some of these things I would classify as just leadership. But I guess maybe I just misunderstood what mentorship was all about. So, Mathieu, you were talking about the things that I don't know, and that's kind of what I always thought mentorship was about. So, for example, if at work, if I submit a pull request and things are not as well programmed as they should be, then people are going to teach me how to be better. And I don't even have to have a relationship with them, and where like I like beforehand I asked them to be my mentor. I'm going to get that feedback anyway. But at the same time, while that is going to help me do this job better, that is not going to help me do the job that I need to do 5 years from now better. So that is not going to help me, long-term career plans. That's not going to help me, like we just mentioned very briefly about the soft skills. So I always felt like the mentorship relationship was meant to be more about bigger goals and things that can't be taught in the course of my normal job. So yeah, I would like to know what is wrong in my thinking in terms of all these things, and if I do want something big out of mentorship, then how should I be asking for that?
Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but yeah, Nicola.
Right. So first, yeah, we've been talking about mentorship for 40 minutes. We haven't defined what mentorship was, so maybe that was in fact a problem. I think there's nothing wrong in your thinking, really. I think different meaning for different people. In my case, for example, I mostly do technical mentorship because I have zero soft skills, and the technical mentorship I will give is not necessarily, right, this is what you've done wrong today, let's fix what you've done today. It's more, right, looking at what you've done, these are the things you need to understand that are not necessarily apparent in the code you've written, but these are the holes in your training or in your knowledge, and fill these holes for the future, right? So provide a sounder foundation, is that correct English? Yeah, sounder foundation for learning, for getting better in the future, because whenever you try to build a huge amount of knowledge, which as information workers, this is mostly what we do, right? We learn lots of stuff. And if you build that on bad foundations, not enough academical knowledge or not enough practical knowledge or mix of both, then you're never going to get really far. So another way, the way I do it is make sure, right, you have everything you need in order to move to the next stage in your training and in your learning. What your definition is obviously, of course, very good. How do I learn what I'm going to need to learn to be able to do 5 years from now, so that I can think now about the job I'm going to be doing 5 years from now? So that's probably a non-technical kind of mentorship. So that would be my answer, but I don't know if anybody.
Just like from the training perspective, I see like training as the person that is on the ground with the person. So someone that's in the same level of you, but a few years more in the company or a few months, maybe they will be able to train you on that thing. And the mentor is generally a person that has more experience. and then they will have like more wide view of the things. That's how I also think about mentor versus training, just at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. I would maybe also add that mentoring can like have a lot of use a lot of methods, also like technical trainings, role modeling, etc. So yeah. Okay, I want more time.
You mentioned in the beginning that the industry is not in a good shape right now, and there are some programs like the IT for people who are finding their first job, trying to find their first job, or those for both experienced and beginners, like tech leaders that I'm also co-organizing. And I'm just wondering how to approach those people without lying to them that they will definitely find their job or that it will be easy, because it will probably won't be, and they will probably won't find the job yet, or not in a short time. So you have some idea for the approach, how to not crush their dreams, but also being honest with them.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, we need a mic.
Right, so I think the answer is in the question, really. You said how to be honest with them. I think that's the answer. You be completely honest. Like, yeah, this whatever we're doing to help you is not going to get you a job immediately. It's just going to hand you a better chance at getting one. So there's a lot of people in the market at the moment. You need to find a way to differentiate yourself from them, and going to whatever it is we're doing helps with that. You're going to learn things that are going to give you a better chance of being better than the rest. We can't promise you you're going to get a job, because there's potentially no job to be had. But yeah, I mean, you had the answer in your question. The only real thing you can do is be completely honest with them. And if that's not if they don't like what you have to offer, then that's fine. But at least they never feel like you betrayed them or lied to them. Is that what you wanted to hear? Does that answer your question? Good.
A tough one, I guess. We don't have time. More time. Maybe one more. Okay, so I saw that there's one more. Or maybe even more than one. Wow. Yeah, a lot of exercises today for you.
Back row. My question is that, I mean, I know one of you is a senior, has a position as a senior in the company, but I am a senior developer on a team of many senior developers, and I find myself performing mentorship, because whatever, but I don't have a formal position as a mentor. So like, I see problems and start discussions about it, but there's not necessarily a position of authority that I have to say, hey, this is why we do things. So I don't know, thoughts for the difficulties there, being like, I don't have a bat to swing.
Okay.
I don't have a bat to swing of like, you should do this if you disagree. But how does that affect mentorship? Outcomes you want to see?
I think this is agreement in the company, and then when you have agreement of what are the rules, you write it down, and everybody just follow what's written down. The problem is when it comes from you, it can become much more personal, and then like that's why I'm always advocating for linters. Like just to like put the machine to talk to the developers, and then not face this type of like what are strict rules, they should be automated, and then like you not face this. And also I don't qualify it as a mentorship, but someone that's just like imposing and putting the rules to work. That's more like a trainer, like teaching people like this is the rule, and this is more like technical things. So maybe what you can do as a mentor or trying to do it is start looking for the common questions that you have and organize people to talk about it, and then you write the agreements, and then you have it as a. So I was facilitating several of these meetings, and then like, hey, I see like a flame war here because of this small thing. Then let's talk. So just try to encourage people to bring it. And even if you don't end up with an agreement, at least you document what's the fight about.
Okay.
I think can I?
Maybe two more sentences.
Okay. I think I don't really like the idea of having a formal role of a mentor in a company. It should go from bottom up. If you are like a mentor because that says on your position, that's not how it's going to work. Especially you're a manager. Especially that when we are seniors, we tend to specialize. I am good in one thing, the other person is good at that thing. Like everyone in the team should be able, at least, well, maybe not everyone, but people who have the skills to it should be able to talk about what they are good in just on daily basis to juniors.
Okay, one more sentence. Closing remark. Okay. So I realized that I forgot to introduce myself. Anna Miller, I'm a manager of the mentoring program at the IT, as it was mentioned. So thank you very much. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for all the questions. If you have more, probably there will still have 4 more minutes here to talk about it. Thank you.
Absolutely.